All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are at the end of the Mishnah, right here on Nun Beis, Amud Beis. We're at one of the last cases. Drusas Zev is where we're up to, which is at the middle of the page. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, 20 lines. I don't know. You have to count it there. Drusas Zev. We'll hopefully get to the next Mishnah. We'll finish this up. Drusas Zev is when a animal gets clawed by a wolf. Now, they didn't have germ theory back then. Clawing of wolves, they felt that there was some kind of poison in the claws of the wolves. And I suppose I always look at it and read and say that they were concerned for infection, right, potentially, of clawing, but they'll see that they have tradition about what kind of clawing and all of these kinds of circumstances. Keep in mind that they felt that there was some kind of poison. The attitude that they have is there's some kind of poison that was coming out of the claws of these animals. So, Drusa Zev, so Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Rav says in Rav, Bebehema, when it comes to an animal, minazev ulemala, it needs to be, we're talking about the behema is a large animal, right? And it's it has to be the animal that's attacking it has to be a wolf or larger, right? The ophos, and when it comes to birds, minha nates ulemala, it has to be a nates and larger. Nates, so we loosely translate it as a sparrowhawk. Right, some kind of it's like, I don't know, it's a medium-sized hawk, right? Not like the biggest hawks, right? So this kind of a bird is going to attack. So you need to have a certain sized animal for its clawing to be effective. Lemute mai. So then, what is Rav coming to exclude? So ilema lemute chatul. If you're going to tell me that he's trying to tell you that if a cat scratches an animal, so then it's not going to be considered to be a significant, it's not going to make it a treifa. So then Tanina, that's exactly what our Mishnah says. Our Mishnah says, Drusa Zev, that you need to have it attacked by a wolf. So why would it bother to tell me attacked by a wolf? Maybe it's telling me, Zev Begasa Nami Doris, that a wolf is also, you might think that a wolf can only attack small animals, but maybe you're telling me that a wolf can attack large animals as well, but maybe even a cat can attack small animals like sheep or things like that. So v'hatznan, we learned in the Mishnah, it continues on, it says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Drusas Ze'ev Bedaka, that the attacking of an animal is a wolf, that's by a small animal, by sheep, goats. Right, Drusas Ari, a lion, is what's required begasa by a large animal. So therefore, you see that there's no such thing as a drusa attack from an animal smaller than a wolf. So v'chitema Yehuda miflig pag. Maybe the answer is, Rabbi Yehuda is arguing. Maybe the first opinion is that no, wolves have to be for larger animals, and you can even have an attack from a cat from a smaller animal. And Rabbi Yehuda is coming to disagree, and he says no, wolf is for smaller animals and lion is for larger animals. That's not true because Ve'omar Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafa Amar Rabbi Ilah. Didn't Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafa say in the name of Rabbi Ilah? Lo ba Rabbi Yehuda el lefaresh divrei chachamim, that Rabbi Yehuda is only coming to explain what the chachamim said. That there's no argument in our Mishnah. The chachamim said that it has to be attacked by a wolf, and Rabbi Yehuda comes to explain that and say that it's a wolf by small animals and a lion by large animals. So the Gemara, so therefore, why is Rav coming along to tell me, what's he adding by saying that you need to have wolves and larger for attacking these animals? So the answer is Gavra Karamis. Why are you contrasting? You're going to say what? Maybe Rav disagrees with Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafas. Rav thinks there's an argument, and Rav is coming to suggest that an animal that the Chachamim would think that you can even have a cat attacking the small animals. To which Rav comes along and says no. So Iboy saying, what else if you want, I will say, Liolam Lemu'ute Chatul. That really, Rav is coming to exclude, the Mishnah is coming to exclude cats. Mahu Detema, what would you have thought? Maybe it's not coming, Liolam, the Mishnah says, Lemu'ute Chatul, the Mishnah is eliminating cats, and Rav is explaining that that's what the Mishnah is coming to do. Mahu de Tema, what would you have thought? Why would you have thought? What else would you have thought the Mishnah is doing by saying a wolf? The answer is Urcha de Milsaktani. The Mishnah is not telling you specifically that a cat couldn't attack. It just says wolves do attack because that's what's common. So therefore, normally you won't have a cat attacking a sheep or a cow, and therefore it wouldn't be, but it can cause damage. Kamash Malan. So no, he's telling us no. Even if they do attack, even though it's not their normal way to do so, it would not make the animal a treifa. Amar Rav Amram, Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Amram says in Rav Chisda, Drusas chatul unemiya. If you have a attack from a cat or a nemiya, translation of an nemiya is kind of some kind of other, like a badger, or he says it's a matron, Martin. That's what he says. Martin. That's what Rashi says. Yeah. Rashi says a martin, which if you Google is a really nasty badger-looking type animal.
A martin.
A martin. Yes. A martin. Just a martin. Yeah, that's what an enemy is. A martin. Those are smaller creatures, but they are begedim utlaim. They're going to attack lambs and sheep, so smaller animals. And drusas chulda, and a weasel will even attack ba'ofos, will even attack birds. So the size of the animal, the size of the attacker, according to Rav Amram, Amar Rav Chisda, the size of the attacker matters based on the prey, right?
So Martin looks like a very interesting, neat animal.
Yeah, it's like it looks cute, but it isn't. Yeah, just stay away, exactly. So, Meisvei, so he asked the following question. Drusas chatul neitz unmiya achetinakev lechalal. So, Rav Chisda said, this Rav Amram said in Rav Chisda, that these cats and martins will attack these smaller animals, but a brisa says that the attack of a cat, of a sparrowhawk, and a martin, they're not going to create any kind of a treifa achetinakev lechalal unless they puncture inside the animal. Meaning a scratch on the outside of the animal, which is what what we've been talking about, isn't going to be sufficient to cause the animal to be a treifa.
Dog bite, for example.
Dogs are going to be very interesting. Dogs coming up. About drusa leislahu, but it's not going to be this kind of a scratch where we said the scratch is fatal. It has to puncture the animal for it to be fatal. So how is Rav Amram going to understand the brisa? V'tizbera neitz lo doris. But one second, how could you understand the brisa? The brisa includes in that list a sparrowhawk, and we're saying a sparrowhawk doesn't cause that kind of a damage. That's not. But the Mishnah clearly says drusas neitz. The Mishnah includes sparrowhawk in this list that does. So halo kasha, so it's not going to make a contradiction. Kan ba'ofos, kan bigdiim utlayim. The answer is, Rav Amram said the name of Rav Chisda, he's talking about sheep and goats and those kinds of animals, and the Mishnah is talking about birds. So when it comes to birds, a sparrowhawk can attack birds, and even if it doesn't puncture into the bird, it's still going to cause it to be a treifa, but it's not going to be dangerous enough for a lamb. So, Mikomakom Rav Chisda kasha, but you still have a problem with Rav Chisda because you have to explain how the brisa is going to say that cats and martins are not going to be poisonous to these animals, but you are going to say that they are going to cause this damage to. But Rav Amram Rav Chisda say that they do. So the answer is Hu da'amar ki haitana. Rav Chisda is going according to the following opinion. Detanya, he learns in a brisa. Beribbi Omer, Beribbi says. Lo amru ein drusa el b'makom she'ein matzilin. He says that the only time that we say that these animals, cats, for example, martins, even though we said that they don't cause any kind of this damage that can make the animal a treifa, that's only when nobody tries to save it. Because they're not really aggressive in that circumstance. Martins? They just do it to the martins and the cats, right? They're just going to scratch, right? However, but if people are going to try to rescue the animal, so then, yesh drusa, then they get vicious, and then they start really clawing, and then they get into things, and then that's going to cause damage. So therefore, that's where Rav Chisda says that there is, that's why you don't have a contradiction. The brisa says there's no damage, that's when there's nobody coming around to save the animal. When Rav Chisda says that it can cause this kind of treifa damage by scratching, that's because people are trying to rescue the animal, and that's when cats and martins get very vicious. Are you telling me that if human beings are not around to rescue the animal, so then if the cat scratches, it's not going to be a treifa? What about this story? Hahi tarnagolis. There was a chicken. Ki dehavai be Rav Kahana. It was in Rav Kahana's house. Everybody needs to know whose chicken it was. Rav Kahana's chicken. Derahat chatul basra. There was a cat chasing the chicken. Ve'al li'idruna, and so the chicken went into a room, ve'itchid dasha ba'apeh, and it tried to close the door to get away from the cat that was chasing it.
It must be a very smart chicken. You know how to close the door.
Yeah, chicken knew how to figure to close the door. And the cat got so frustrated, it swiped at the door with its claws. Ve'ishtakach Allah, and they found on the door, chamisha kurte dama, 5 drops of blood. Or it was some kind of red liquid, which they took to be the poison from the cat's claws. Right? So therefore, the cat was clearly agitated, and would have, if it had clawed the chicken at that point, it would have been a treifa, but there were no human beings around.
It would have been deadly for the chicken.
It would have been deadly for the chicken, and there were no human beings. So that's the question. So the answer is hatzala atma nami katzal sacher nami. When the chicken is trying to save itself, it's the same thing as when human beings are trying to save it.
Is that where we get the word hatzala from?
It's the Hebrew word for rescue. So we don't get it from here necessarily, but it is the Hebrew word for rescue. The Rabban and the rabbis will say, Zihara islay velo kali zihare. He says that the cat, right, does have this kind of the fact that it scratched the door. It does have some kind of poison in its claws. However, it doesn't have a very powerful. It's not a burning one that's going to cause treifa. So that's why they don't agree, right? This is not going to cause treifa. Eka Amri, there are those who say that wasn't the story. Hamani, who's the story? Who is the brisa that says that there is no such thing as a cat that can cause this damage of a treifa? It is Barabi's opinion. Detania's we're in a brisa. Barabi says, Lo amru yesh drusa el b'makom sheyesh matzilin. We only say that a cat can cause damage or a marten when there is somebody trying to rescue it. Aval b'makom shein matzilin ain't drusa, but if nobody's trying to rescue it, then it's not going to be caused a treifa by drusa. B'makom shein matzilin ain't drusa. The Gemara says, what are you talking about? There's a place where nobody's trying to rescue it. There's no such thing as the poison. V'ahi tarnagos to have Rav Kana. What about the chicken in Rav Kana's house? Derahad chatul basar. The cat was chasing it. V'al idruna went into a room. V'itchid dasha ba'pei, and it closed the door. And the cat scratched the door. And then there was 5 lines of blood on the door. So the answer is that's different, because that's what the cat will do even if the chicken's trying to save itself. It's the same thing as a person trying to save it. The cat gets frustrated, angry, agitated, and releases poison and could cause damage to the cat. Okay, boy minei Rav Kahana may Rav. So Rav Kahana asked Rav the following question. Nun gimel amarav. Yesh drusa lechatul. He asked him, right? Is there such a thing as this trampling damage, the scratching damage from a cat that can cause it to be a treifa? Oh, ain drusa lechatul or not? Amar lei. So keep track of the answers. He says, Rav answers, af lechulda. Not only is you have to worry about cats, but even weasels. Weasels are smaller. So weasels can even cause damage. Okay, sounds like yes, right? Yesh drusa. So he says, "Af lechuda yesh drusa." Yesh drusa lechuda. So then he asks him, "Okay, well then can I ask you, is drusa a problem for weasels?" Because he seemed to imply yes. Oh, ain't drusa lechuda, or maybe not. So Amar lei af lechatul in drusa. He says, even for cats there isn't. So now that seems to be the opposite of what you just said before. So he says, well, 1 second. Lechatul lechulda. I want to know about cats and weasels now. Yesh lem drusa, ein lem drusa. Can they or can't they? So Amar lei lechatul yesh drusa lechuda ein drusa. He says yes, cats, weasels no. So what in the world? First he says both yes, then he says both no, and then he says one yes, one no. So what's Rav doing? So the answer is he's answering the question correctly 3 times, just in 3 different cases. V'lo kasha. Had Amar lei, that which he answered ein chulda af lechulda yesh drusa, that a weasel can attack. That's ba'ofos. That's birds. So weasels and cats can attack birds and cause them to be a drusa. Had Amar lei af chatul ein drusa, that which he said even a cat isn't, weasels and cats are not. That's be'imre ravervi. That's when you're talking about grown up sheep. And they're too small. These are too small animals to attack sheep. Had Amar lei lechatul yesh drusa lechuda ein drusa, that which he said that cats yes and weasels no. Begediem utlaim, when you're talking about lambs. Little goats, lambs, kids and goats. That's right. Kids and lambs. That's right. Okay, good. Kids and lambs.
Such a cute kid.
Right, exactly. Okay. Boy Ravashi says, Shar Ophos Tameyan. What about other non-kosher birds? Other non-kosher birds, they attack as birds of prey. and they attack their prey, yesh drusa and lan drusa, can they also be, is the Mishnah exclusive when the Mishnah says that it has to be a sparrow hawk? Or what about other non-kosher birds, eagles, other hawks, other things, right? What about those? Amar le Rav Hillel Rav Ashi, Rav Hillel says Rav Ashi, ki havinon bei Rav Kahana, when I was by Rav Kahana, Amar shar ofos tamein yesh lan drusa. Yes, other types of non-kosher birds can in fact inflict this damage onto smaller animals and cause them to become tamein. V'hanan tanan, but 1 second, our Mishnah says, how do you explain our Mishnah? The Mishnah is drusas hanetz be'ov hadak, that it's the sparrowhawk that causes this trampling damage. So, drusas hanetz b'dikavaseh. The answer is, well, a sparrowhawk is exceptionally dangerous because it will even cause an animal to be a treifa if the animal it's attacking is about the same size. So I have to take a look how big a sparrowhawk is. Let's say a squirrel, right? So if it attacks a squirrel about the same size, it will also be. But the enoch, the other non-kosher ones, bedezutra, they can only cause drusa damage to animals that are smaller than them. So a sparrowhawk can even attack ones that are the same size, but the other one's smaller. Ve'ikadamri, those who say drusas anates berderabimine, that even sparrowhawks can attack ones that are larger. That's a sparrowhawk, yeah. It's hard to say. That's why I figure it's about the size of a squirrel, maybe, right? So also he says, well, it'll even attack ones that are large, and it can attack a rabbit or something. I don't know, right? Enoch bidikavaisu, the other ones will only attack those, will only cause this damage to ones that are the same size. Amar Rav Kahana, Mishmei de Rav Shimi Barashi. So Rav Kahana says in the name of Rav Shimi Barashi, Ein drusa l'shual. Foxes, they do not cause any of this damage. They don't have this trampling damage. The scratches are not venomous and therefore not going to be a problem. Ini, is that true? V'haki also Rav Dimi Amar. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he told the story. Maisa, there was a story that Vidara Shual Rachel b'merchatz shel beis hini, that there was a fox that attacked a little lamb. I don't know if it was Mary's, but a little lamb that was in the bathhouse in Beis Hini. The story came before the Chachamim Amru, Yesh Drusa, and they said that it is in fact a Drusa and it's a treifa. Amar Rav Safra says, Hahi Chatul Hava. That's because you got the story wrong. It wasn't a fox, it was a cat. And we had said that cats can attack these smaller animals. Ikadamri, there are those who say, Amar Rav Kahana Mishmei Rav Shimi Barashi Yesh Drusa l'shul. Some said no, that he actually answered yes. Foxes do cause this damage of drusa. Any, is that true? V'haki also Rav Dimi. In this way, the story goes the other way. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar Ma'aseh v'dar Shul Rachel b'merchatz shel beis hini, that there was a fox that did in fact attack a small lamb, little lamb, in the bathhouse of Beis Hini. And the story came before the Chachamim. Va'amru ein drusa.
Was Mary the shepherd?
I did not say. Does not say in the Gemara. We'll presume that you could interpret. Va'amru ein drusa. They said that it is not going to be a treifa. Amar of Safra says, "Who kelev haya?" That's because you have the story wrong. It was a dog. And this is rabid dog. Rabid is different, right? But a dog, they have a tradition, right? Amar Rav Yosef Naktinon Ein Drusa Lekev. We have a tradition, dogs are not claw, they don't claw. That's not the way. Now, if you have dogs, right, the clawing is not their method of attack.
The bites are.
Yeah, that's correct, they bite, right? So they don't cause this kind of scratching damage. Amar Abai says, Naktinon, we also have a Mesorah, Ein Drusa El Biyad, that when we're talking about the scratching is done with the four legs. Not the forelegs, the front legs. Right? Thank you. Right. F-O-R-E, right? Lafuke regel, not the back legs, delo. If it scratches with the back legs, that's not going to be drusa. Ain drusa ela betziporen, only with the claws, right? Also only with the claws. Lafuke she, not with teeth. Biting is not going to be drusa. That's not the same thing, delo. Ain drusa ela midas. Also, drusa is only intentional scratching, right? If it's intentionally scratching, lafuke shalobidas, not if it's unintentionally, if it just scratches and defense or whatever it's doing causes a scratch, that's not going to be drusa. Delo. Ein drusa elamechayim. Also, the animal has to be alive, right? If it scratches after the animal dies, that's not going to cause a treifa. Lafuke le'acharmisa. Delo, that's where it doesn't. So Amri, okay, so now, the B'nai Yeshiva said, let's take a look at this list here. Hasha shalomidas, you said that the animal has to be intentionally doing it. Amart lo, you said if it's not intentionally doing it, it's not drusa. So liachar misa mi boys, and what do you have to tell me that it's not a drusa after death? If it's after death, it's obviously not intentional. So clearly, you don't have to list after death is not a problem. So lo tzricha, I'll tell you, no, it does, because dedoris, what happens is, the case is that it was scratching and then paskua lidei, and then the guy cut the leg off the animal mid-scratch, right? Scratches it, the paw is in the arm of the person, and guy cuts it off. So now the paw is in the arm. Ma'udatema, what would you have thought? So that is now not a drusa, because the limb is severed from the animal. So now, you might have thought, Bahadi de Doris Shadi Zihare. You might have thought that when is the poison injected? It was intentional. So therefore, the poison was injected at the beginning of when it started to claw. So Kamash Malan, this is coming to tell us, Bahadi de Sholif Shadi Zihare, that it's the end. So therefore, since the claw is now severed from the hand of the animal, so therefore it is not going to be a drusa, even though it started intentionally, it ended dead, and therefore it is not going to cause drusa. Amar Rav Rav Huna Amar Rav Huna saying Rav Ari. Let's talk about lions. Ari shenichnas lebein ashvarim. Lion goes into the ox pen. Lion gets into the ox pen. V'nimtza tziporen begabo shel echad man. You don't know what the lion has done, but you find a lion's claw in the back of one of the oxen. So the question is, how did it get there? So you should presume lion attacked it. And if lion attacked it, so then the animal's a treifa.
Well,
right?
Dead, I know.
The animal should be a treifa. It's not going to be dead because the lion didn't kill it, right? The lion just went to swipe at it and left a claw there. No, that's not what happened. Ein choshish and shema ari jarso. You don't have to worry about the fact that a lion did it. Why? My time, what's the reason? Rov arayos dorsin, miuton ein dorsin. After all, we would go by a rove, right? We would have the majority of lions do this, attack, and some do not. Now, we're going to say, according to, there's a whole machlokas rishonim, how to understand the Rashba, how to understand what's going on, but we'll, at least the simple way of, we have a chazaka, that the animal is not a treifa, right? And now we've got a rove circumstance that the lion, most lions will attack. Rove beats chazaka, as we have discussed in the past. So therefore, we should say that the lion, most lions attack. So if the lion is going to attack, we must presume that, why not presume that the claw is here a treifa? So the answer is, the kol adores ein tziparno nishmetes. Also, now, we would say that if the lion was doing the attack, normally the claw doesn't fall out. That's not, I mean, the lions do attack, but the lion would attack, then the claw wouldn't be in the back of the animal. Zos hovitzipor yosheves lo begabo. This circumstance, since the claw is in the back of the animal, you say it didn't come from the lion clawing it. It must have come because it was in a wall or something, and the ox was trying to scratch its back against the wall, and it got something lodged into its back from the wall, not from the lion.
Lions are not like bees.
Correct. It's not like, exactly. That's not the common way. So therefore, that's how we're say it's not the rove circumstance. It's more, we had to look at what's the more common, what's the more likely circumstance. Adarabba, what are you talking about? The reverse is true. Rov shvarim mischachin umiaton ein mischachin. Most, right, we'll go, most oxen scratch against the wall, and few do not. Kol mischakech ein tzipor yosheves lo begabo. But whenever they scratch, they're not going to get claws stuck in their back. That's not normal. This one's got a claw stuck in its back. Must be the lion attacked it, right? So whichever way you look at, what's more common? So hachi. So the answer is, you're right. You've got two weird scenarios. Either it was attacked by a lion and its claw fell off, lucky ox, or it scratched against the wall and got a claw stuck in its back, unlucky ox. Whichever way it was, it's a weird situation how the claw got there. Oki milsa achazke. Since you've got two equally strange phenomenon, then the chazaka that it's not a treifa stays in its place. You've got no majority circumstance that is more reasonable.
Does the fact that that a lion got into the pen not add to the likelihood that it was from the lion?
Oh, so we're going to discuss. We're going to see that not necessarily, right? The fact that the lion is present doesn't necessarily automatically make us presume that it attacked.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. so therefore, havale suffik drusa. So what we've got is it's really a doubt whether it got attacked or not. The Rav Latame, Rav is going to go according to his reasoning. To Amar ein choshin l'safek drusa. We don't worry about suffik when it comes to this kind of an attack. Amar Abaye. Abaye says lo amran ella tziporen. We're only talking about this if we're talking about if the nail is actually in the back. of the ox. Aval makom tziporin, right? However, if you've got a scratch mark in the back, so then chosh, and then you can presume that it was attacked. V'tziporin nami, even the mark, right, of the scratch, lo amran ella lacha. Aval yevesha of the demishtamta. So then, even the claws, right? This is what we're talking about. If it's only, we're going to presume it didn't come from the lion if the claw that you find is a fresh claw. If it's a dried up claw, then it could have come from the lion too, right? Because dried up.
The claws are more, lion's claws are more dry?
If it's a dried up claw, it'll break off. So then it makes sense, right? How did it break off? The answer is the dried up claw would break off. So he's saying if their circumstance does seem to indicate, right, your forensic evidence does seem to indicate that is a likely scenario, then fine. Lacha nami, and even a moist claw, regular fresh claw, lo amran ella chada, that only is if there's only one claw, then it's uncommon, right? Aval, however, tartiot plus, if you see 2 or 3 claws in there, then chayshinan, then you have to worry about it again, because what's the likelihood of 3 claws coming from the wall, right? Now 3 claws, the only place that you can find 3 claws altogether is the paw of the lion. So that makes more sense. Vehu dekaima bedara desichufe, and that matters where you find them, right? It's if you find them in a line, right? If you find them in like the pattern of a lion claw, then that makes sense. If you find one here and one there and one there, then that doesn't prove anything, right? But if there are 3 claws in one place, obviously the lion just had an unlucky day. Right? Okay. Itmar. So we said in the base medrash, Rav Omar, Rav says, Ein choshin l'safek drusa. Rav had this rule that he says that we're not, if we've got a doubtful circumstance, whether the animal was clawed or not, we can rely and presume that it wasn't. Ushmuel Omar, choshin l'safek drusa. Shmuel disagrees. He says, no, if it's a doubt, then we would. And so therefore that's why he would say that if I have this circumstance, I don't know whether it comes from the wall or if it comes from the lion, I should presume it came from the lion, right? If it's a doubt, that's what I'm left with, so then I have to presume that it's treifa. Dekuli am a suffik al suffik lo al. So now, what circumstances are we talking about that you have to worry about it? Everyone would agree that if we don't even know whether the lion was there or not, right? Suffik al, suffik lo al. If I don't know if the lion even entered the pen in the first place, so then, and you find a claw there, everyone agrees, then you don't have to worry about it because ema lo al. First of all, you don't even know if a lion was there. Suffik kalba, maybe it was a dog. We don't know where the scratch came from. And suffik shunra, right? So, I guess this is right. Also, sorry, that's the next one, right? So I don't know if it came in or it didn't come in. So of course now I've got a doubt. Did it scratch? Even if it came in, so it's a suffix feka, we would say it's a double doubt. Number one, I don't know if the lion was there, and even if it was there, I don't know if it clawed. Okay, so that's for sure. Everyone's going to say that's okay. Also, suffix kalba, suffix shunra. What if I don't know? I know something came in, something scratched the animal, but I don't know whether it was a dog or a cat, right? Cats are going to be potentially poisonous to the small animals. Dogs are so a makalba. So I can say a makalba. I'll say it was a makalba. I will say it's a dog, and therefore there's no problem here at all. Okay. Now if I know that the lion came in, this is where it comes in. Now just I know the lion is there, doesn't it? No, not necessarily. Shasik ve'esuv beinaihu. Right. If the lion is just sitting there nice and quiet, right? Lions sleep most of the day. And they only attack when they're hungry.
Or if someone bothers it or whatever.
Yeah, so therefore the lion is sitting there, right? And it's just lying there. So Amar Shlomashave. The lion just came there peacefully. He really wasn't on the attack. He wasn't hunting. So therefore, you don't have to presume that it clawed. Kata Reshe Dechad Minayu. You find one ox with its head ripped off. Okay. So then, nach merischei. So again, you don't have to assume that the other ox is a treifa because it was angry, it attacked this ox, and now it's done, right?
It got decapitated.
It attacked one, right? So it does not, right? It's the hunt is over. It doesn't have right. Ihu kama'ave. If the lion is growling or roaring, the inhu kemakarkaron, and the oxen are mooing, and they're all upset. So then, beusi kamebase. So then everybody's scared of everybody else. Nobody's doing anything. The lion is scared of the oxen is scared of the lion, and so you don't have to presume anything's happening. Keep plaguing. The only argument they have, when is it that it is a question mark about, and therefore there's an argument over whether we can presume that it was attacked or not? That is de'ihu kashasik, when the lion is quiet, vinu kimakarkron, and the oxen are nervous, right? Mar savar, Shmuel says, ma'isek ka'avid behu. The lion is hunting, right? He's attacking when he's already scratched one of them. That's why he's quiet. Mar savar, the other one says, machmas biusei hu deka'avdan. He says, well, they're just making noise, right? Why are the oxen making noise, right? Because if the lion's quiet, should they be quiet? The answer is they're making noise because they saw the lion attack the first guy, right? Or are they making noise because they're just nervous? That's the
Or
machlokes.
they're making it because they want to talk to each other.
They don't really talk much to each other, as far as I know, right? So they're
So much.
although they are making those noises, they are warning the other oxen and things. Amar Amaymar says Hilchasa. The halacha is that choshin l'safek drusa, that we do have to worry about the doubtful circumstance of the animal being scratched, attacked, like Shmuel says. Amar Ravashi lameimar. Ravashi says Rameimar hay derav mai. What about Rav? How can you follow Shmuel's opinion? What about Rav's opinion? So Amar Lei, so he says lo shmiele. I've never heard of this Rav statement. Klomar lo svira, which means to say everybody's heard of Rav. What he means to say is I don't hold of it, right? Now v'bois ema, or else if you want to say Hadr be Rav legabe Shmuel, that the answer he gave back is Rav changed his mind. First, there was an argument between Rav and Shmuel, and then Rav changed his mind, and he agrees with Shmuel and says we have to worry about such a doubt. Hi de Rav Mai. I'm sorry, I went back again. So, Dahu Sharakfa, the Suffolk Drusos, because there was once a basket full of birds that were in doubt whether they were scratched or attacked, and Das Lekami de Rav, that came before Rav, and Shadrinhu Lekami de Shmuel. He didn't look at them, he just sent them right over to Shmuel. Chankinhu, they were still alive, right? Because they were checking to see the treasures. So what did Shmuel do? He choked them to death, Vishadanhu benara, and he threw them in the river. Okay, because he held, I got to worry that these are treifos. So got to get rid of them. So if Rav had not changed his mind, Lishrinhu, why didn't you just take a look at the basket and say, hey, if they're in doubt, they're okay. And everybody can go about their business. Elamai Hadarbe, must be he changed his mind. So, okay, well then, Leiserinhu, why didn't he just say Usr then, if he changed his mind? So the answer is, he didn't change his mind. Ella Asri de Shmuel Hava. What happened was, he was in Shmuel's area, he was visiting Shmuel, and when the basket came, he says, no, I'm not the Rav of this town. Go ask Shmuel. Me, I would say, okay, but I'm not the Rav, go ask Shmuel. So I asked Shmuel, and he said they're Usr. So he himself didn't change his mind. Okay. Lama li lemechnikinhu. Why did Shmuel strangle them all? Right? Why was that necessary? Lishadinhu hachi benara. Why not just throw them right into the water? You choke them first. So the answer is mefarchan v'salkan, because it could be that they'll swim away. Right? They're birds. They could float and swim away. And then what will happen? Right? What will happen is that somebody else will find them later on and shach them, thinking that they're fine, not knowing that they were attacked, scratched, and then they will unwittingly be eating a treifa. Okay.
Why don't you choke it to the point where it's falling asleep, not kill it, then throw it in the river afterwards?
Then you're drowning it, so you may as well kill it, right? Okay. Vilash hinhu. So shnei masar chodesh. So why don't you just wait 12 months? Putting in a pen. We know that a treifa, it's not going to live 12 months. So if you wait 12 months and it's still alive, then you know it's fine. So why don't you resolve it that way? So Asi Behuli did to Kali. He says you don't want to keep it around for 12 months because somebody's going to make a mistake, not realizing that these are the birds that were attacked, and they'll shecht it, and then they'll eat a treifa. You don't want to leave things. We have this rule, basically. You have something that's non-kosher, you don't want to leave it in your house. Somebody's going to make a mistake, right? You just get rid of it right away. Veliz baninhu. So sell it to non-Jews, right? It's perfectly fine. You can get benefit out of a treifa. Just sell it. Love de kochavim. So asu zabninhu liYisrael. The answer is they're kosher birds. The non-Jew will sell it back to another Jew. So we didn't want that to be the case.
After they were shifted or before they were shifted?
Well, if he didn't strangle it and he just sold it off live back to a non-Jew, then the non-Jew would go sell it to a Jew, right? So v'lechadkinhu v'lishadinhu. So okay. So lashba. So why doesn't he strangle it and throw it in the garbage? We have to throw it in the water. Throw it in the water. So a tamech, according to your reasoning, Nishdinhu leklavim. Why didn't he just throw it to the dogs, right? Give the dogs something to eat. Why not? Ella lifarsumi milsa de isura. His point was he was trying to make a public declaration, right? He stood by the river, killed them, threw them in the water, made a whole public statement about it because he was trying to show he was trying to declare his opinion that they're all usur. Hahi bar avza. There was a duck. Dahava beirav ashi. We always need to know who's duck, right? Rav Ashi's duck. It was Rav Ashi's duck. Case of Rav Ashi's duck. Al lebeni kanya. So it went into the reeds, and nafek asa ki mimasmes koe dama. And when it came out, right on its neck, it was all bloody. Okay, so now we don't know how it got bloodied.
If it's reeds,
could have been reeds.
There could be rocks on the reeds,
or even reeds, sawgrass, and those kinds of. You could get cut in the reeds, or it could have gotten attacked by an animal. It could be a treifa. So Omar Rav Ashi says, Lo amrinan suffik kalba suffik shunra. In this circumstance, we could say, well, it could have been a dog, it could have been a cat. So the difference is we don't know, right? And therefore, even Shmuel says it's not a problem. Here we can't say that because Amar kalba, right? Because we'll say hachanami suffik kanya suffik shunra. So he says because we know that a dog doesn't do the attacking. So therefore, if there's an attack, it wouldn't have been a dog. But hachanami, but here also suffik kanya suffik shunra. We don't know whether it was a reed that cut it or whether it was a cat that cut it. So we should say it's okay. So Amar kanya machyeh. So therefore, we will be able to say that potentially it was attacked by a reed, and therefore even Shmuel would hold that it's not a problem. Amri b'nei Rabbi Chia. So the children of Rabbi Chia said, Drusa sh'amru, that which we said, that the scratched animal is tzricha bedika keneged me'mayim. If you've got that scratch, and you have to worry about it, and I guess we're now, in a suffix circumstances, right? So we can't recognize any of the marks, but there's a circumstance which, right, we may be worried or concerned about it. Let's say there's a lion in the pen or something like that. We are not going to say it's a treifa, but they say tzricha bedika keneged b'nei mayim. You've got to check the skin opposite. You've got to check the flesh opposite all the internal organs, right? Because that whole area, this area wherever the internal organs are, right, it could have gotten scratched. And so the conversation about in the Mefarshim, whether you're talking about when you shech it, you open it on the inside and you check the inside of the skin, or whether this is for external wounds, right? So let's say we're presuming that we're worried about the flesh on the inside getting damaged by the attack, so you have to check the inside meat in order for there to be any sort of blemishes. That's according to Rashi. So Amar Rav Yosef, Rav says, Had b'nei Rabbi Chia kvar pirsha Shmuel. That which b'nei Rabbi Chia said was already explained by Shmuel. Damar Shmuel says Mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus. He said the name of Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus way before them. Drusa sha'amru, when we said that an animal could be attacked or tzricha bedika keneged b'nei ayim, it needs to be investigated and checked opposite all of the insides of the animal. Boy Ilfa asked the following question. Yes, drusa l'simonim. Do you have to check the neck area where the trachea and the esophagus is? Do you have to check that? Oh, ain drusa l'simonim. Or is there no problem of drusa in that section? So Amar Reb Zera says, Ha de boy Ilfa, that which Ilfa asked, Kvar Pirsha Rav Chanan bar Rava. Rav Chanan bar Rava already answered that question. To Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava Amar Rav. Rav Chanan bar Rava says the name of Rav. Drusa Shamra, when we talk about Drusa, so Tzricha Bedika Keneged Beis Hachalo Kulo, you have to go check the entire cavity of the animal, Vafilu B'Simanin, even opposite where the Simanim are. Boy Ilfa asked the following question. Simanim Shinidaldalu Bekama. Okay, we said that if the simanim, if they become unhinged from inside the neck, so how much of them becoming unhinged in the neck do we have to say that it makes it a treifa? So Reb Zera says, Had de boy Ilfa, that which Ilfa asked, Kvar Pirsha Rabbi Barchana, again, we already had discussed this earlier, but since this is a question that was asked by Ilfa and was answered by Rabbi Barchana earlier, Damar Rabbi Barchana, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Barchana said, Shmuel, Simanim Shendaldulu Beruban, they have to be severed in their majority in order for it to make a treifa. Boy Ravami asks, Hamas misamahu. What about if the animal is attacked in its leg? right? So it's in its hind leg. That's not opposite the body cavity, so therefore it's not going to infect any of the organs. What about that area? So Amar Rabbi Zera says, Hadabai Rav Ami, that which Rav Ami asked, Kfar Pirsha Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda answered, Damar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda saying Rav, Bedrusa, when it comes to a drusa, Adshi Yadim Basar Keneged Be Ma'ayim. You need to have the meat, the flesh, turn red opposite the internal organs. Nismas Mace Habasar, if the flesh decays, so if you have decaying flesh, so then Roenoso Kilu Eno, then what you have to do is, you have to see, would the animal live if that flesh were removed? If you took it to the vet and you had that flesh scooped out and you got rid of the decaying flesh, would the animal survive? If the answer is yes, so then that wound is not significant. That's not going to be a problem. What is the case of the rotting flesh? So Amar Rav Huna, braid Rav Yeshua, Rav Huna, Rav Yehuda says, Kol sharofe gordo. If you brought it to the vet would scrape it away. Umamido al basar chai, and then you'd leave just the healthy flesh instead, and then it would heal, right? You don't want whatever is bacteria is growing in that rotting flesh, you don't want it to spread, so you cut it out, and then you let the healthy grow back. Amar Rav Ashi, Rash says, Ki havinan be Rav Kahana, when I was by the base madrash of Rav Kahana, I to come on, they brought before him hahireya, a certain lung, techihavu motvile, when it was lie down on the table, Yosva Shapir, it looked perfect. It just sat there lying there nicely. V'chihavu madlula, but when they would lift it up, hava talcha, the nafla tilche. It would break up and pieces were falling off of it. So do you look at it as whole because it was whole, or do you look at it as pieces, as if it's in pieces because the pieces are falling off? V'tarifna, he said it was treifa. Why? Mid Rav Huna, braid Rav Yeshua. Because of the statement Rav Huna in the son of Rav Yeshua, because he said that what would the doctor have to do here? He'd have to scrape off all this rotted flesh, and so therefore if I scraped off the rotted flesh, I'd have holes in the lungs. And then therefore it's treifa. So therefore that's why he says treifa. Rav Nachman Amar, Rav Nachman says, bekotes, when it comes to a thorn, so then that is not going to be, there's no poison in that, so therefore ad shetinokev lecholo, it has to puncture into the cavity of the animal. It's got to go into the animal in order for it to be a problem, and then you'd have an issue of treifa if it, you'd have to be worried about it puncturing any of the organs on the inside. But drusa, when it comes to this scratching of the wild animal, mishiyadim basar keneged beim hamayim. You just need the skin, the meat around it to turn red. Then you know it's infected, and then it would become a treifa. Rav Zvid masni hachi. Rav Zvid taught the rules of Rav Nachman as follows: Bedrusa, when it comes to a drusa animal, mishiyadim basar keneged beim hamayim. It's when it turns red, opposite all of the organs. Besimanim. However, when it comes to the trachea and the esophagus, ad shiadimu simanim atzman. The skin around them, they're a little bit more resilient. So the skin around them, the flesh around them doesn't matter. It's if they themselves start turning red and infected. Then that's where you have your problem. Amar Rav Papi says, Boy Rav Bibi Barabai, Rav Bibi Barabai asks, Nun Dalad Amud Aleph. Vesh nikuvaso b'mashahu, if you have a esophagus that it gets punctured in the slightest bit, so drusa so b'mashahu. So too, if it gets infected from a drusa in a little bit, it's also kaneh. When it comes to the trachea, nikuva so b'keisar. We said that it needs to have a larger size of a isar coin. So drusa so bekama. So what is the amount that it has to become infected in order for it to become a drusa? Basar deboy hadar pashta. Once he asked that question, he answered it. Echad zeh v'echad zeh b'mashu. Either way, it's the slightest amount. My time, and what's the reason? Because it's not a matter of how much is ruined. It's ziharei mikola kola v'azil. The answer is the poison's in there. Once the poison's there, it's going to spread. So even though it's a small amount now, it's not a matter of what it is now. It's the matter of that it's going to spread and it's going to cause it to be worse. And so therefore, he says a treifa all the way, even if it's only a small amount. Yosef Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta. So Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel, the son of Marta, Kame de Rav Nachman, he was sitting before Rav Nachman, Yosef v'kamer, and he was sitting, and he said as follows: Drusa sha'amru, that which we said an animal is a drusa that is attacked by another animal. Tricha bedika keneged be'me'ayim. We said that it needs to be inspected on the inside for its insides. So, so Amar le Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, "Hayalo him, I swear by Hashem." So Mori Barav, that Rav what used to teach about this? Mikapa va'ad atma, from the spoon until the hind leg. Where's the spoon? My kappa. What is the kappa? The hind leg we know is here, right? What's the spoon? So ilema kappa diyada. Maybe we're talking about the spatula, the shoulder blade, right? Of the front shoulder blade. That's the spoon because it's got that spoony shape,
So
right?
Kappa dido.
Okay, so there you go. So whatever that's called. So hainu keneged be'ma'ayim. So then that's the same thing as opposite the internal organs. We're talking from here to here. That's what we've been saying. That's why we have a cow today, right? Right? This from here to here, we see it, right? That's the same thing. So Ella mikapa democha. He's adding on. He's saying from the brain pan, from here. He's saying you got to check all this. Okay, so therefore that's the issue: is do you have to check the trachea and the esophagus? Is the difference, right? Ad atma, all the way back to the hind leg. Kisalik Rav Chia bar Yosef, when Rav Chia bar Yosef left Bavel in order to go to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechinhu Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. He found Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, the Yosef Kamri. Two of them were saying, Drusa Sha'amru, that which we said in the Chum said that a drusa, that an animal was attacked, Tzricha Bedika Kneged B'nei Ma'ayim, it needs to be inspected opposite the internal organs. Amar Lahu, so Rav Chia bar Yosef said, Hi Elohim, I swear by Hashem, Mori Barav, that Rav would teach Mikapa da'ad atma, from the shoulder blade until the leg. Or he says Mikapa, whatever the kappa was, not even from the head. Amar, which we just said all the way from the head. Amar le Reish Lakish, so Reish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan, after hearing this, I guess, Manu Rav, Umanu Rav. He says, who is this guy Rav? I don't know Rav, because Reish Lakish is the student. He's asking Rabbi Yochanan. People keep coming over to me and quoting me Rav. Who's this Rav? V'lo yadonale. I don't even know who he is. Amar le Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, V'lo nihirale. Don't you remember? La'oso Talmud, there was a student, Sheshimesh es Rebbe Rabba, that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, or Rashi said it was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi before, because Rebbe Rabba was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Remember I told you that when I was learning, Rabbi Yochanan was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He said, when I was learning by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, there was a student there, and he was also a student of Rabbi Chia's. Ve'Elohim, and I swear, kol osun shonim sheshima also talmid b'yeshiva ani shimashti b'amida. He was sitting in the shiur and I was standing. They used to have the tradition that the students that were the higher level students were able to sit, and the students that were the lower level students were standing. He says he was ahead of me, right? So he was more Rav, was more advanced than me. Uman givar. So what was it that he was so? Why was he so great? Hu givar bekula. He was great in everything, right? In Torah, Chasidus, Anivos, everything. Rav was just spectacular. He was just like amazing. So he tells Reish Lakish, that's this Rav that we're talking about. Miyad pasach Reish Lakish v'amar. Immediately Reish Lakish said, Baram zacharos tov. We should definitely remember such a man for good. Shamru shmu mipiv, since they said such a thing in his name, right? So he says that you're supposed to check it. Shemuta ushechuta. So if you've got these the trachea, the esophagus that is severed, if you've got a trachea, right, that is severed from its neck, and we don't know whether it was severed. Now you're just taking a look at it. You don't know if it was severed before or after the shechita. Severed before the shechita is a good shechita. If it was severed, before the shechita is not a good shechita. It was a treifa. Severed after the shechita, it's good. And I don't know which is which. He says kshera, so he says kosher. Why? Because the rule is, the knife wouldn't be able to cut through if it was already severed. So if Rabbi Yochanan says, no. Yavi v'yakif. You've got to be able to bring another animal from another place, right? Shecht it and then sever the trachea and then shecht it and be able to see if it's the same. So Amar Rav Nachman, lo shanu ela shelo tafes b'simanim. That is only if you're not holding this. It's only possible because it's only impossible to shecht if you're not holding the simanim in place when you're doing the shechita. Aval tafes b'simanim v'shachad. If you're holding the simanim in place when you're doing the shechita, efshar shmuta shetas shechita. You can have the severed trachea go get cut through. Normally with a shechita. That can happen because it's being held in place.
Tension.
Right. It seems like a tension. That's what it sounds like to me. It seems like a tension thing. Ze'aklau. Here's the rule. Right? So I'm sorry, that's the last line of the Mishnah. Last line of the Mishnah is Ze'aklau. This is the rule. The rule is that if it's not going to live, it's a treifa. So lasuye mai, what are we coming to include here? Lasuye shev shmaitza. Remember the 7 additional treifos that we had mentioned earlier. We talked about the rib that got severed. We talked about the spleen that got removed. We had all the 7 other ones that it had listed. So those, and they were not decapitation for sure, right? But that's not right. That one was a nevela, we said, right? So aside from the 18 that we had mentioned in the Mishnah, we had another 7 that were listed. So the Mishnah is including them by saying, and here's the rule. So basically anything that won't live. So Debe Yosef Rishba. So in the place of Yosef the hunter, Machu begida nasha vikatli. They had a way that they would hit the animal with a stick in the hind leg, and it would stun the animal. They would hit it in the gida nasha. It would stun the animal, and the animal would fall. So they asked the question: is that a treifa? Are they doing a treifa? Right. Also, the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So they brought the case before Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Amar Lui said, "V'chi lahosif al treifos yesh." He says, we have a tradition. You're not allowed to add on. There's no more treifos. We have rules. We have a Kabbalah from Moshe Rabbeinu. What are the treifos? These are extra. It's not. Ein lecha ela mashim anucham. Only which the Chamim included. Rav Papa bar Abba Rishba. Rav Papa bar Abba Rishba, the people of the house of Debei Rav Papa, the people of the house of Rav Papa Rishba. Machu bekuya vekatli. So they would shoot an arrow into the animal. And they would shoot it into a place it would go into the cavity of the animal. And then the animal would die like that. So I guess they were shooting with an arrow. So also Lakame de Rabbi Abba, so they went to ask if they do shchita before it dies. Right, here you've got the animal with an arrow sticking into it, right? Assuming that it hasn't punctured anything underneath. Can I shecht it? So they asked Rabbi Abba the question, Amar Lahu, so he said, V'chila hosif al treifos yesh, you can't add any other shchitas. We see that you shot it with an arrow and it's going to die, but it's not. Ein lecha ela mashim manu chachama, only what the chamim are going to include. V'hal kachazinan de kamesa, but what are you going to say? It dies. How are you going to explain that? It's dying, right? So the answer is, Gemiri de'i badre losama chaya. We have a Masorah that if you were to save the animal with some kind of medicine, right, then you could rescue the animal. Okay, so this is winds up being the question, right? A lot of these things that theoretically you could do some medical treatments. The answer is, technology is frozen by the way that it would live, or an animal would live or die. This is the halach l'maisa. By the way it would live or die during the times of the giving of the Torah and the Gemara, during the times of the Talmud. Afterwards, if we've now gotten further in our veterinary medicine, and we can rescue animals and save them and do surgeries and keep them alive, that does not preclude them from being a treifa, right? But any of the things, the wounds that they would have had from back then, that they could have healed back then, those are not treifos, even if the animal would die on its own without any intervention. So basically, whatever medicine they had back then is the medicine that could save an animal, and it wouldn't be a treifa. But our medicine now, despite the fact that the Gemara seems to come to the conclusion, well, if you save the animal, so then that is not the case. All right.
Talk about being able to go and sew the inside.
Correct. Yeah. So, all right. This is where we will end for today.